enter into called adhesion contracts. Remember, anything that's required a license is illegal under the corporate state, and they have to give you a license to give you permission to perform a function that they classify as illegal. Think of everything you need a license for. In a system without a license, it's against the law for you to do that. Right? That means that they regulating inalienable rights when they tell you can't hunt without a license. They regulating an inalienable right when they tell you can't fish without a license. They regulating an inalienable right when they tell you can't traverse the land with freedom of locomotion without a license. Right? All of those things are illegal under the system that we under because it's a slave system. If it wasn't a slave system, nobody would tell you you can't go down to the lake and catch a fish and feed your family. Nobody wouldn't tell you that you can't go out, bag that deer to feed them over the winter months, right? Nobody wouldn't tell you that you can't go from point A to point B without a license if you was free, if you wasn't under the system of control, slavery, manipulation, and deception. They use the science of sociology to determine the movements of groups of people. Who move in groups, Elder?
Hey, like animals, like herds, packs.
Right, but in the humans, we call it what?
Gangs.
No, that's one name for them.
Clans, tribes.
Clans, tribes. Right.
Families.
So when you know how they behave, you can make their natural behavior illegal. And then you can persecute and prosecute. Right? Because they doing their natural behavior.
They even created the agricultural department laws now to where you can't even almost grow your own food on your land. You can't even grow a tomato. They come in there, oh yeah, you growing a tomato? You can't do that.
That's a violation of your inalienable right. As a caregiver of the land, you have a right to till and garden the soil as long as you properly take care of the tilling and the caring for the land. Just what farming is. This is why they took us off the farms using the sharecropping agreements, the same way they muscled us out of our money in the music industry. Find what you're already doing and monetize it.
Now we see that the interstates that they building is they putting the tollways and everything. It's a lot of things going on where it seems like they trying to auction off. United States corporation is auctioning off all their equipment. They selling all the planes. They selling the tanks. They selling the RV cars. And it seems like now people had noticed this, and y'all gonna notice this once I say this. And Raw, you make it go in on this a little bit. And probably about a couple years ago, I started to see a lot of a lot of the military vehicles being converted to all white instead of the camouflage normal colors. They being converted to all white, and they put UN on the side. Now, why? Because you're talking about the U.S. shutting down and the government, all this going out of business. Why are we starting to see a lot of UN equipment coming in on the land? I'm starting to see a lot of UN equipment coming on the trains and diesel trucks and these things. You got anything on that, bro?
You got to remember. Okay, first let's deal with the selling off of the assets. You know what make billionaires sell off assets?
They know it's about to go down or something, they know it's about to get at the end.
They always do the same thing. They end up in court because they can't pay their bills. And bankruptcy. America been in the bankrupt status since 1931. Right? HJR, House Joint Resolution 192, was the settlement of the bankruptcy that allowed the U.S. inhabitants that they call citizens to discharge all debts in their sovereign capacity. But the problem is the corporation can't do business with a sovereign flesh and blood, so they have to reduce you to paperwork. To reduce you to paperwork, they have to establish a corporate enterprise in your name, give you a birth certificate, declare you a national. A national is the same status as a ship on the high seas. The flag that you fly was representative of the nation you was under. When you was under that contract that expired on July the 4th, 2019, the smartest thing to do was to form your own nation and nationalize, right? But you can't do business with the corporation when you do it. That's how Noble Drew Ali got usurped, and that's what made the Moorish Science Temple fall, right? But remnants of it still persisted because they believed that there was the same power base that Noble Drew Ali had built. Back when Noble Drew Ali was the Grand Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America in the flesh, when he first founded it, he had the jurisdictional authority to send a Grand Sheik to any court, argue jurisdiction, and bring you back into the temple for whatever to be dealt with by your own. Somebody went behind his back and made a pact with the government. The Moorish records gonna tell him who it is. I don't know who it was. I got my suspicions who it was, but I don't know who it was. But their name is on the papers. And the reason we know that he got usurped is because the new nationality card said the holder of this card is a U.S. citizen. Right? So that's how you know that somebody went behind his back, because you couldn't be a Moorish national and a U.S. citizen under the Moorish Science Temple as it was originally established, with the high chief being recognized as Noble Drew Ali. And this is why he went to Cuba, right? Because he was a certain jurisdictional supremacy. He got to go. He got to go. But he already knew that he was infiltrated. And what did he say? He said, the only thing that'll surprise me is if a Moor would do right. It's in the oral statements and prophecies. I'm not making this up. Noble Drew Ali said, I can count the number of Moors that's going to make it on one hand and have fingers left. Why was he saying this? He knew he was infiltrated. Any chief that read that know that the Moorish Science Temple has to be infiltrated for him to speak so low of the Moors and be the founder of the Moorish Science Temple. And the only thing that they didn't know is he had went and found out the secrets from the Moorish Zionist Jews in New Jersey, and they went to war in New Jersey. Then they fell over in New York going to war. The war spread all the way to Detroit, and it culminated with his death in Chicago. He didn't ever stop fighting them, and they look like us, but they not us. And we didn't already showed the pictures. Right? So now we had to deal with the fact that the contract that the government had to operate for the 200 years, the George Washington Challenge, expired on July the 4th, 1976. But due to us taking them back to bloody war in the War 1812, it gave them an extension to 2012, which coincided with the Mayan calendar, meaning the ancestors already knew that somewhere along the line we was going to rebel and fight back instead of educating ourselves out of the condition. So when Noble Drew Ali is taken out, that's the Red House. They had to get rid of Garvey. Go back and look at the pictures. Garvey had a standing army of us across the land in every major metropolis, about to go to war till he go in and read the ledgers, and now he know he can't take them to bloody war unless he give them more time to conquer us, rule over us, subjugate us, oppress us. So if he take them to bloody war, he asking for more problems when we could just educate ourselves out of the condition. And this is when he came with the motto, up you mighty people, do what you will. Use your willpower and your mental acumen to form your own stuff, right? He said, and I got the 200 years post on my Instagram, where you have to scroll down a ways, but it's in there where he acknowledged the 200 years of the oppression. And he said, even if it take 200 years, they can't hold us down. Our ancestral bloodline is too strong. It can't happen. It's not possible. It's beyond the paradigm of something called reason and logic. So as long as if it's outside that paradigm, that means that one of us gonna figure out the trap, tell everybody else how the trap work so it don't work no more, right? We gonna call them by the blood and the right to call out the contract that we was under and cancel it because they never honored it. Fraud and deception, and fraud vitiates all contract. So by exercising the blood and right to cancel their contracts with fraud and non-performance because they never honored one. Right? So now all of their contracts being canceled, they have to surrender the documents that they established their jurisdiction on, that they call foundational document. And once that was done, they gave the foundational document to Empress Redbird. I didn't know her at the time. That means that she was, in order for the people that was holding that as the foundation to the land as a allodial title to give it to her, they knew she was the rightful heir before she was born. And they followed that lady her whole life, giving her misery, hoping she don't never wake up to who she is and exercise her blood and her right to reclaim the tribal jurisdiction of the matriarchies across the land. You can't stop it. It's done now. Now we just waiting on the machine to finish falling and collapsing because the tilt button ain't working no more. Right? When they pull Sleepy Joe out of this race, what they gonna do? They don't got time to campaign a new candidate.
Sleepy Joe ain't gonna make it, man. I don't think he gonna make it to the everybody like they trying to throw it to try to still bad mouth Trump and keep Trump, certain thing. But what I'm saying is that's all, to me it's all front, because it seems like to me the UN moving in. Now this is my question for you, Roy, about the UN thing. Now after the government is out of business,
that's the second part of the question you asked that I didn't get to. So the second part was, why are we seeing all of these UN vehicles? Who was the number one supplier the whole time from the foundation of the UN of military armaments? Who was their number one supplier?
U.S.
So when the U.S. money run out and they need their stuff back, who they gonna get it from?
The UN.
Right. Now, remember, Trump and the White Hats is forming something called the Earth Alliance under Space Force, bringing all of the major countries of the world together to fight the tyranny of the oppressive regimes that use these adhesion contracts to enslave the world, starting at the Vatican. Well, the Pope been overthrown, the Queen, Lizzie's in the box, London Bridge is down, the banks is in the huckabuck, and the only thing left is the military, which is the Americas. Now, when they start bringing their materials back home, before they get a chance to take the UN stuff off, we going to see UN stuff being transported across the land. But when it roll out, it's going to have National Guard on it, because ain't nobody else allowed to police the homeland but the National Guard.
Right.
So whatever you seeing, they mistaking them to probably be repainted.
That makes sense, Rod. That make a lot of sense. Getting they stuff, it's like they liquidate, or they getting back. Like, okay, they like, it's like they coming to collect. I don't know. So like they gave them a loan. They gave them a loan, and the UN supposed to pay this amount of money back every month or every year on this equipment. But now that the bank got to call all their loans because they bankrupt, they got to pull that equipment back. It's like they got to repo your house, repo everything back, and foreclose all this equipment because they need to liquidate that for the money or for whatever the purpose may be. Going with their bankruptcy since November 3rd, 2020. That's when they really put in the bankruptcy. U.S. corporation put in that bankruptcy November 3rd,
Well, they
2020.
was operating on what's called a memorandum of understanding, which is an addendum to the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what they did that with George Herbert Walker when he declared himself King George I of the United States of America, including Central and South America and Canada. Remember when they was about to come out with something called the Amero after the Euro came out?
Right. The American Union, all that. Go ahead. That's what Credo Mutua was talking about.
So, yeah. So that was George Herbert Walker's attempt to establish the government for the cabal under the New World Order system in the 1,000 Points of Light. He was the highest ranked wizard on the land that was part of the Illuminati government operations that they was running over here. He rose to prominence using his CIA connections and selective assassinations. Most of us don't know that until you seen his funeral, he was still running the government. And when they elected Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was selected by military white hats, they call them the 50 generals, right? But it's more than that. But it was started with 50 generals that was retired, that knew what was going on and couldn't stay quiet. And they started communicating with each other, and they came up with a plan. Put it back in the hands of the tribes, give it back to the people of the land, and they'll balance it out. They'll get rid of all the hate mongering and all of that. If you can let them be who they are, they'll fix all of the problems. But as long as you're trying to stop them from being who they are, you're just going to create more and more problems on their land. They've been using slaughterhouses and bloodletting rituals all over the country in order to keep us subjugated. And this is why you're seeing all of these chicken farms and stuff catching fire, beef farms, mass dying off of cows, all that's GMO. They got to get rid of all of the GMO before they give it back. All of the genetically modified foods have to go, right? So now they will stop putting out genetically modified foods and start putting artificial food stocks in its place. So we can't put that in there no more. We can't use no more Monsanto. We just have to give them plastic now and rework it. So they're giving you fake food now.
Hey, Raw, Trump, man. I was gonna ask you something about Trump. Because they using a lot of people don't know about Trump. Trump go way back, man. I remember when Trump. I did a little back trace on Trump. And Trump been going after these $5 Indians, man, for a while. Like before he even became president, he was always poking fun at these $5 Indians. He used to go down. He used to go to all these conferences and say, "Oh yeah, I went down to that reservation that you got over in New York, where you say these people are Indians, and they don't look like Indians to me. They don't look like Indians to me, man.
They're Indians."
Go ahead.
They don't look like Indians to Indians. See, Trump knew who we were. Remember, Trump in the early days of the BPP, he was a financier to the Black Panther Party, right? During his college days. Then he left there. He became a staple of the early hip hop scene when hip hop was going from its formation with Kool Herc and them. He was there from the beginning. Right? He inherited a slumlord business from his father. He didn't want to be a slumlord, right? But he had to answer to the people from the community. If you go back and look, they had all of these rallies calling Trump to come talk to him. We ain't paying this stuff no attention. We so busy worried about mainstream political farces that we believe that all of the lies that's being told is more true than the truth. Trump was selected by the tribes to buck dance in front of them and take over for us and to push the tribal agenda with the generals who was giving the land back because they knew what was going on with the whole corporate fraud. If you remember when White House was on Zillow, right? You know, that was part of the liquidation of the corporate asset. If you go downtown, if you go down throughout DC now, everything is fenced off, quarantined off. All of those are crime scenes. Everything you see gated in DC is a crime scene. That's why the gates is there. If you look at the, I think it's either the White House or the State Building, they got gallows in front of it now. It's about to be some hangings going on. I hope I get to pull the lever.
Yeah, hey, man, America been under scrutiny since it was founded. United States Corporation was founded by criminals. Now, I mean, what else do you expect but some crime to be a whole bunch of crime be going on? Hey, we're at the hour 30 mark, man. Hey, everybody hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're gonna come back, man, because like I said, I've been